Share. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Urlin Vasilev and I'm the community manager for Harbor. Today is August 11th and that's our community meeting for the European and China time zone. Welcome everyone. And today I see two topics added and let's go them one by one. Proposal for tracing. Do we have Pian on the call?
Yeah.
Hi. Can you walk us over the proposal, please?
Okay. Let me share my screen.
You're gonna share? Okay. Stop sharing.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Wait, can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. In this release, I propose to add the feature of distributed tracing for Harbor, and this is my proposal. And as we can see, the background for why we added the tracing for Harbor is that because the modern application, the tracing is a very key features for applications online to debugging, and for also it can help to improve their performance and such kind of thing. And we and for modern applications of observability, there are three pillars: the log, the metrics, and the tracing. And the Harbor already have the logs and the metrics, so we just add the last pillar of tracing in this feature. And so we in this release, we plan to add tracing for the component of Harbor Core, Harbor Job Service, and register control, because this three component is a very important part for Harbor, and we need to the tracing information in this component will very helpful for people to online debugging the issues, and also can help the developer of Harbor to improve their performance online, because we can get the request time or some information to guide us well the time spent in a Harbor service, and we can improve it. And so the library we choose, the goal of this also include enable it on K8's environment, and the long goals include we just enable the three components as I mentioned previously, and the other components like Postgres, Redis, Trevi, maybe in the future we will add it. And we just provide the tracing data, not the profiling data like pprof enable for Harbor. This is why we the library we use the OpenTelemetry to add the tracing for our Harbor service, and why we choose it, and there are some consideration. And the first is the OpenTelemetry, the most popular tracing solution in community, I think, is Jagger and OpenZapkin, and there also have some standard for tracing is the most popular is the open tracing standard and the open census. But the open tracing and the open census, they will merge into one project. That is the open telemetry. Maybe the library, the third-party library may be less than that, but I think the open tracing is the future of the open telemetry is the future of tracing. And it also, if we're using the open telemetry, it can also support a lot of other components the open telemetry is compatible with the Jagger, OpenZapkin, and all the other popular tracing solutions. And most of commercial solution also support the open telemetry. So this is one reason we choose it. And that maybe someone don't know the difference of the tracing and the logs and the metrics. And the metrics let us all know the overview states of the system, and but the tracing focused on one request, so it can help us to locate the root cause why something wrong happened. And the logs, in the tracing, we can also log some informations in the trace, and there are some difference between the logs, because the logs record all the information happened in the request, and maybe more than thousands of logs, only one is useful for you. But in distributed tracing, the information it record maybe most of the things they record are helpful. I think there's a difference between logs and the distributed tracing, and it also have some difference between the profiling and the distributed tracing. As we all know, when we debug the Go applications, we were using the profiling to get something like CPU time, memory usage, or Go routine information stack, Go routine stacks or something like that. About the distributed tracing have something in common, like profiling, like that distributed tracing will record the time elapsed of each of the functions you care about, but the information of profiling is much more than distributed tracing, and it also need more resources than distributed tracing. So we cannot always open the profiling, but we can always open the distributed tracing on our service. And this is the proposed how to implement it. The first thing, we need to add some configurations in our Harbor config file like this. And there are different kind of things we need trace. Like we mentioned, programs like HTTP client, HTTP server, and we can use this kind of snippets to wrap our HTTP server and HTTP client. And for Harbor core, we have a middleware, so we can using this this is just a studio code. We can use this kind of code to add a middleware in Harbor core. And in each component we wanna add the trace, we can add a code like this to add the tracing feature in each component. Okay, I think this is my proposal. This is my proposal. Okay, can anyone have any question?
I got a question. What?
Go ahead, Alex. I'm sorry.
When is the merge? What is the status on that merge? The work.
Actually, they already merged because when you go to the like as you can see when you open to see the Open Tracing's website, and they have a warning here and tells you they already merged the two OpenTelemetry. I think I think the Open Census and Open Tracing didn't have new features. All the new features I think were implemented in OpenTelemetry. And the OpenTelemetry have metric. It can record metrics and tracing, and the tracing is the general available version is in that tracing feature, but the metrics is also in beta, I think. So I think the OpenTelemetry is stable enough because I read some articles. It says that the Google Cloud used the OpenTelemetry in production. But maybe I couldn't find the reference.
Okay, got it. I think also another comment in your section on, what is the difference between tracing and metrics, right?
Yeah.
One thing you can emphasize is tracing is really, it's looking at a single event, right? It's looking at how long a request is spent in, the front end or back end or a database or going through some external service, but it's very much a single event, right? So it overlaps with metrics in some sense, but they're used for different purposes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much, Chen. I think this is something that was requested about, I think, like more than a year ago. And we never really we've been adding. We've been working on telemetry, right, through Prometheus integration. I think this is the natural next step.
Yes.
By the way, Alex, OpenTelemetry. Yeah, OpenTelemetry. Just FYI, OpenTelemetry was announced back in 2020 or mid 2019 on KubeCon.
Yeah, I remember it was announced. I remember looking at it last year, but it wasn't. The merge wasn't done.
Yeah,
the merge wasn't complete.
The next year, the tracing feature is in beta, but this year is GA this year.
Okay.
I have a question. How do you think that will impact performance? Because we have tracing brings some more time, let's say, for each operation, so that will definitely impact performance overall.
From this perspective, it will add some more resources for your running application. But when you add the tracing, and you can know the time spent in what component, in what function or something like this, and this can help you improve your code. But from this perspective, it is really helpful to improve the software's improvement, because you know where is the bottleneck, and you can just to improve your bottleneck, and it will help to improve the whole performance. And the impact when add tracing is I think is the impact is less than 1 to 5%. it will not spend a lot for resources, and is async to export the tracing data to the tracing receiver. And it also can if you want you think the data of the tracing is too large, maybe you can add some configuration like the sample rates. You can only tracing like 1/10 or 1/100, or something like that. That's on, or I think maybe I read a paper from Google, the Dapper, and it's only collects 0.1% of tracing data in production, and is enough to help them to locate the issues online issues and help them to improve their software.
Yeah, and in that regard, as a follow-up question to my previous one, do you think some mechanism of turning it off and on would be visible as well? I mean, maybe not every user wants to have tracing data and to spare this 10%. I'm asking because I've hit that issue in the past. We enabled tracing of one component, and it's like it was using quite a lot of resources, which not everyone wants to spare. So is there mechanisms how you can turn it on, for example, for specific deployment, and you can test something, then turn it off in production, for example?
I think yeah, it will impact it will consume more resources, but the data, how many data you are tracing is controlled by a lot of things, like you can reduce the data you're tracing in your code, and also you can like I was mentioned to add the sampling sample rate, and we can also because we have a queue in the library to receive the data and send batch this data and send it to the tracing server or something like this. We can have some improvement in this to reduce the impact. But we cannot ignore it. But as a trade-off, and the feature help desk is I think is more than it impacts the performance, the resource it consumed.
Okay. I have more questions, but maybe we can keep them in the issue and to be more documented.
Okay.
Yeah, and okay. When do you think you can file that issue so we can? And do you think we need a working group for this one, like a dedicated one, or?
Yeah, actually, we've discussed with the harbor maintainers and Stone and me. I work on this feature.
Okay.
So I have Alex, one. Yeah, I was gonna ask a question. Is OpenTelemetry a replacement for something like Jaeger and Zipkin, or does it work? Does it integrate with those?
The OpenZipkin and the Jaeger is it's like a software. It's a service to consume the data and to give you the help you to analyze the data and show you the results. and the open tracing, open sensors, and the open telemetry is a API standard, and it also provides you some SDK to collect the data.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that was I remember that was the question in the very beginning. That was the context. Is like the open telemetry is like a framework. It's almost like a cache, or it collects the data, and then they want to analyze and visualize the data with their existing Giga deployment. So I think we need to maybe we can in this ticket I can add some use cases, and we can make sure that those use cases are covered by this proposal.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I kept that for the issue because having tracing without the use case where that will be useful, it's maybe not complete proposal.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, to give example, what kind of issues we can debug with this one? For example, latency in which component, or some database requests taking so long, or something like that would be very, very useful.
Yeah. Okay. I can add some examples in this proposal later.
I think like garbage collection, right? Garbage collection and replications.
Yeah.
These things are, if it's taking too long, then maybe we can identify some performance bottlenecks.
Yes.
All right, thanks. Let's move on to the cosine integration, because we spent some time looking at this, and I want to make sure we have plenty of time to go over the proposal. Thanks, Dun-Chien.
Thank you.
Sorry, are you going to share that, or should I share?
Let me.
Yeah, maybe that volume share.
Okay.
Okay. Let me give you a short description about the proposal about the COSA and the Harbor. I did several investigation about COSA and how does Harbor just support COSA, and this proposal is about the integration story. So what is cosine? Cosine is a part of 6-door project and provides container signing and verification with OCI registry integrations. You can go into the cosine repo to get some details. Basically, it just can provide a sign of verification and OCI artifact and push the signature as OCI artifact into the distribution. So currently, Cosine has its first production ready release. That is 1.0. So we can get it complete. Back to the story. So why we gonna to investigate about Cosine? Currently, Harbor is using Node to offer a way to sign image. And Node is also integrated into Harbor and overall offer a good experience. But some limitations of Node has caused the challenge that user to distribute the signed artifact to another Harbor instance. But the cosine can provide this capability. So cosine the cosine signature are stored in OCI distribution next to the container image, and we user can just push the signature like other artifact. But so okay, let's just start with Go. So this proposal is one to support cosine in Harbor, and after support, all the existing functionalities can be applied to the send artifact. So what we do not want to do in the phase one, the first one is we do not want to manage the public keys in Harbor side. I personally believe that to manage public keys is not a Harbor's duty. So in phase one, we do not want to offer this feature. So in addition to that, because we do not want to manage public keys, so Harbor cannot verify the signature. That means we do not support signature verification in Harbor side. Also, we cannot support cosine clean. Cosine clean is to remove the signature from the registry. So why we do not support it? That is the cosine clean leverages the type API deletion API. So this API is not a required implementation that defined by the OCI spec, and Harbor so far does not implement it. So in the current release, Harbor cannot offer this operation. Also, we cannot support cosine copy because that following I will have a detailed explanation about how do we build the relationship between the signature and artifact. But for the cosine copy, because of the sequential of the push operation, cosine pushes the signature firstly and then push the artifact to Harbor. So this is hard for Harbor to build the relationship between the signature and the artifact. I also list some personas and user stories. So cosine is the operation for any user who has the Docker push permission of Harbor. So anyone who can push an image into Harbor, he can push a cosine signature to Harbor as well. And I just list some user story here. After someone push cosine signature to Harbor, the project admin can delete the signature while Harbor UI or API or GC and artifact as well as its cosine signature. Things like that. So let's go to some details. So before I have a detailed implementation, I want to have a definition about the accessory. What is the accessory in this proposal? It is extra stuff which can be added to an artifact in order to make it resetable. So in this proposal, you can see the cosine signature as an accessory.
Yeah, maybe the key thing to here add, Wang, is this is, you know, we're trying to bind the signature to the OCI image, right? After it's been pushed to Harbor,
Yeah.
We're trying to establish that relationship so that when you run something like garbage collection, it doesn't remove the keys, independently of the actual images. And the other thing is, that relationship is going to be used for a lot of the other policies that exist in Harvard today. And yeah, and then we call it an accessory because we can generalize this to other things, right? Beyond for cosine in the future.
So by default, Harbor will support cosine. So that means you do not need to specify any parameter in the installation step, like with cosines. You do not need it. What you need is just install Harbor, then Harbor will support cosine. But if you just specify the to use Node-RED, so it means that Harbor support both Node-RED and cosine. So in addition to that, Harbor will provide two different kinds of signature policies to block user to prove and sign the artifact. So this is the first one design. So in the future, if we decide to support only one signer in one deployment, so we should define some behaviors like if user switch the signer from Node-RED to cosine or cosine to non-cosine, Harbor will remove all the signatures data from database under the backend. The artifact reference and cosine signatures are stored as a separate artifact in the OCI registry, but just with the weak reference with its name. So as this picture shows that this is a cosine signature. It just has a name with digest as its tag, and this digest is indicated that the signature belongs to which manifest. But from the registry perspective, this two artifact has no relationship. So to guarantee the signatures will not be garbage collected by the registry, Harbor has to build up the relationship between the cosine signature and the subject artifact. So I want to introduce a new table that means that the name is artifact accessory. The most important value here is that we have one ID to indicate the subject artifact ID, which the signature belongs to. With this reference, Harbor will know the relationship between signature and artifact. So how does Harbor to build this relationship? We can add one more middleware to intercept the manifest push request, because cosine will use the OCI spec to put a signature in the Harbor, so we can intercept the request to use the media type to identify this request is pushing a cosine signature. Then we can build up the relationship into the database. I just listed the cosine signature blob payload here. It's the single signing format, and the single signing format is defined by Red Hat. So if you want to know something about this payload details, you can go to this link to see details. We can see there is a one key named Docker manifest digest. This digest is the subject artifact digest. Another thing here is that in Harbor, we can copy artifact from one project to another project. So for this operation, we should build the relationship in the backend as well. So we can, this paragraph is the workflow. So after we build up the relationship in the backend, so how does the user know all the information? So from the API, there's no more API for user to query the accessory of an artifact. Harbor will just append the accessories into the artifact payload. So you can find this attribute here. It means that this artifact has two cosine signatures. The type name is signature.cosine, and user cannot list the accessories directly via the API. Also, Harbor should provide the API to delete the accessory, like the cosine signature. So for delete the cosine signature, we should just append accessory to the delete endpoint and give a type that is the cosine signature.cosine. This API will remove all the signatures of artifact. And if you want to remove a specific one, just specify the digest here. So why we have two APIs? Because that cosine can attach several signatures to one artifact, not just one. So we provide two APIs to remove all or remove any specific. Here is the draft interface design for the tracker. A tracker is used by Harbor to block user to pull unsigned artifact. So we should know whether an artifact has a signature. So if user select the policy like enable content trust policy, in the backend we should use the anomaly tracker to check whether there's a signature or not attached to the artifact. Then use the results to determine whether to block the request. So after we support cosine to attach signature to an artifact, so how do we manage the signed artifact in Harbor? So how signed the artifact affect the Harbor behaviors? I list several items here. The most concerned is about the replication. So after Harbor support cosine, And so the user can replicate the artifact and its signature to another Harbor instance. So this is the most concise feature that we want to integrate with Cosine. So let's back to the Cosine signature payload. We can see there's one key that named the Docker reference, and its value has the endpoint information. I just confirmed with the Cosine team. The Cosine client will not use this attribute to verify the Cosine signature. That means you can replicate the signature to any Harbor instance, and the Cosine verification flow will not break. Another concern feature is about the garbage collection. So because that Harbor knows the relationship between the signature and the artifact, so a garbage collector will not remove the signature individually. And in addition to that, if one artifact is a GC candidate, and all the signatures are the GC candidates too. Other feature will not have much impact. I list several behavior difference between Nautri and Cosine. The first one is so for the currently design of Harbor in Nautri, that is if user sign an image with Nautri and then with the Harbor without Nautri enabled, the image will act as unsigned. So this is the current design of Harbor, but for Cosine, the behavior is different. If user sign image with Cosine, unless a user remove the signature from the artifact, the image will always be act as signed. And another big difference here is that about the sign type target. Nautri attaches the signature to the image type, but Cosine attach the signature to digest. This is the a big difference. I will give you an example. Like we have one image that is the hello world, but we have two tags, V1 and V2. For Nautri, we can sign the V1 tag, but V2 is unsigned. But for Cosine, we just assign the hello world repository. So the all of the tags V1 and V2 are act as signed. So I just list one item to be discussed about the sign tag. It's just item 1. So Cosine attach signature to digest by default. So should we apply the signature to all the tags of artifact? So this should be discussed. Another important thing that to be discussed is can the signature it be added or remove tag label like other artifact? For this item, I will give you some background about it. Because the Cosine signature is also a OCI artifact. So Harbor will store any OCI artifact into the table artifact. But Harbor will also record the signature into accessory table. But eventually, the signature is an artifact. So I have a question about the signature. That should we treat the signature like other artifact in Harbor? So if not, we do not have any flag to distinguish them. Another thing is about the tag signing. I personally think that the cosine does not provide a good solution to sign a tag. So we can see here that the cosine provide a flag that is that you can specify any key value. Eventually, a cosine will write the key value into the optional map here. So a cosine in the cosine documentation, cosine team mentioned that you can just specify tag equals something and use this kind of workaround to sign a tag. But I do not think it's a good design. So my question here is that do we need to support this kind of scenario? One last important element is about multiple signatures. Cosine can attach several signatures to one artifact. So, but the cosine is using a model of appending signature, but with the same tag. So this will not work for the immutable feature in Harbor. So and the cosine team has already aware of this. So cosine team has already filed an issue about that to resolve how does cosine to work with the registry with immutable tags. So someone provide an idea that is we can add a random ID to the cosine signature tag name to avoid to use the same tag name. This is one block issue. Another issue here is that for the multiple signatures, because they are sharing one tag name, so the previously pushed will becomes to the untagged artifact. So if user run GC with untagged checked, all of this untagged signature will be removed from the backend. So the Harbor will do some enhancement about the garbage collector to deal with this situation. And I also file an issue to the cosine repo to discuss with them how does cosine to deal with this kind of scenario. So the next thing, at least just a list of those things that for the phase 2, like we can manage public keys in Harbor, or we can support all the cosine features, and also as well we can provide the signature validation. And also the last one is the cosine has a plan to integrate with TOF, so we can keep a watchful eye on it. This is the proposal of cosine Harbor. So if you have any questions or comments, you can just add other comments to this PR. This one. We will use this PR to discuss. the integrity story. Hey, Alex.
Yep, thanks, Sonia. I think this is really well summarized. And yeah, I just think that, cosine as a solution is not very mature, right? That's kind of my takeaway from reading all this and having had some discussions with you previously. It feels like, where we have to manage the verification, right? We have to either support the management of the keys directly or integrate against kind of a KMS to manage keys on Harbor. And that's just, it kind of goes beyond what Harbor is trying to do. I like the Docker Content Trust framework around PKI, around public key infrastructure, right? It turns on a flag, and the pushing the image with, DTC turn on is basically just an entry. It just logs an entry in a notary DB. Here, first of all, we have to manage the relationship, with the accessory artifact to bind the image to the signature. And then once again, it feels like we're going through what we did to support OCI, right? All the behavior, creating policies and garbage collection and everything. We just have to think about, making this, we have to think about tuning, the behavior Harbor to accommodate for the signature. And I feel like cosine has, without the existence of a spec, right? They've sort of just thrown this work to the registry implementers, and it's possible that various registries that are attempting to use cosine would, come up with their own implementation, and the artifact ultimately does not get persisted correctly with the signature, right? The whole point is to be able to replicate an image with the signature intact. And I don't know. I'm not to say I'm discouraged. I think there's opportunities here, but I think, instead of rushing into implement this right away, we should, we should keep, like you said, we should keep a watchful eye on everything else that's happening, right, and the progress of Node V2. And I'm kind of wondering what does integrating cosine with TUF mean exactly? How would that solve some of the problems that we've discussed, or? Yeah, the cosine and TUF integration. I haven't seen this ticket yet, but I'll take a look after the meeting.
Okay, and I have a question without actually being very knowledgeable on the topic, but is that going to change much of the user experience, exchanging notary with cosine, or I didn't quite get the thing.
It changes the user experience. Wang Yan was talking about.
Yeah.
Sorry, Wang Yan.
Mostly,
Do you want to go ahead?
You go ahead, Alex.
Okay, yeah, it changes the user experience, first of all, in terms of, we're thinking about, do we implement both? Do we implement one or the other? And when do you make that choice, right? Do you pick the signing solution that you want during deployment? And then, we're also, kind of thinking about, is the accessory, right? The signature artifact, is that something you expose to the users, to the UX at all? Or is that just something that is sort of like metadata, right? But it has to be closely tracked and tied to the artifact? Or do you treat that as, if we have to treat this as a special artifact, right? Think about what that means. That means we obviously have to add some additional logic to the backend, right? Add a bunch of if else or whatever to make sure that that does not get exposed to the UX, and that all the different policies around retention and immutabilities, these would not apply, or these would apply to signature, right? But in a very specific way. I don't think we want to, like some of the things that the use cases Wang talked about, I agree with him. I don't think we want to implement some of the like the cosine functionalities around copying and clean, because it's just very, I mean, it's very proprietary, it feels like. I don't know if it makes sense for Harvard to implement that logic, but for us, we have to think about, do we allow the user to modify the signature, right? Do we allow him to attach multiple signatures? What happens if you push the same artifact with different multiple times, right? But with different signatures, how is that treated in Harbor, right? There's just a lot of different use cases to think about, because the nature of what a signature is and how it's tied to the image has completely changed. It just feels like it's way more complicated than notary based on TUF. That's very clean, right? The only thing that it doesn't give us is the ability to replicate the signature to another registry. So, there are positives and negatives with both approaches, and we're just trying to evaluate whether we should look into supporting cosine at all, right? So this pull request is a design PR under the community repo. So I would appreciate if everyone can take a look and then add your thoughts if you have come across this issue and have been thinking about notary, or if you're watching cosine, and think about some of the experiences, right, of managing the signature, and like basically what do you like what this proposal is doing? Think about some of the implications. I think it's going to be pretty. I think it's going to be pretty complicated with a lot of corner cases that we'll have to tackle in stages.
And another question: what kind of issues we faced with the notary and the scaling that was in the very beginning? And I'm just curious how cosine is solving them.
The biggest, so this whole project, the motivation for looking into cosine was you can't replicate a signed image to another registry. So from one Harbor to another, you can't do that, because basically the domain, right, the FQDN is embedded into the signature itself. So when you replicate it, it gets broken. And right, so there's this effort to improve notary, to build a notary for the multi-registry world. And it's been an active community. You can find the Slack on CNCF, but it's something that has been in the works for since KubeCon 2019, right? So it's been a while, and certain users, and I've heard this from downstream customers, they're a little bit frustrated, right? And I think that's what you're seeing in other organizations, right? A lot of companies have to have the requirements to ship signed artifacts, right? And they need provenance for their customers, indicating, hey, this is indeed signed by Microsoft, or signed by AWS, or signed by Google, or whatever. And I think that's basically where cosine 6 store came from. There's an urgency to solve this issue, but unfortunately, we're sort of at a crossroads where we're thinking about supporting this. I mean, I don't want to do it just purely to solve supporting replicating the signed image if it's a lot of work to us, and if it's inferior to notary in every other way. It doesn't make sense to me.
Do we have discussion on this problem somewhere so I can read more about it? I'm quite curious to know more details.
I have some raw notes myself, and I have some emails that I can share with you, and then I can show you. I can add you to the Notary V2 Slack channel as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and also you can reach out to Wang, because he's very knowledgeable, and he's been watching the image signing solutions very closely.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Anyone else questions about this one? Because we're 3 minutes after the hour. Shannon, do you want to jump in or? Okay. Yeah, he said that Notary version 2 community meeting is right after this one. So I suppose he's jumping to the other one. Okay, if nobody else wants to add something else, I think we can call it for today. And thank you all for participating, and talk to you next time. Bye.
Thanks all. Thanks, Janet.
Thank you. Bye.